So that's a great question. Actually, I want to add two more questions to that. One is it possible? And the second is, should we care? So if you think about whether it's possible, it's entirely possible because poverty and inequality are two different concepts. Poverty is looking at the bottom of the distribution. Inequality is looking at the share of the pie, who gets what share of the pie. So I'd like to think about it in two ways. One is graphical. And if you have a look at the graph there, you can see we measure inequality most commonly with the Gini coefficient. And that's that distance between the Lorenz curve and the line of perfect equality. So say 20% of the population, we would like them to get 20% of the income, but you will see that the bottom 20% get something like maybe 6% of the income. If you move to this graph, you see that you have two countries, and country A, you have more inequality at the bottom. So the chances are that there's more poverty in country A, whereas in country B, you see that there's more inequality towards the top of the distribution. So the chances are that even though they both have the same level of inequality, if you look at the equation, it's telling you that those two spaces are the same. One is likely to have less poverty and one is likely to have more poverty. Now, just an aside, you can actually have, this kind of situation without having any poverty at all. You will always have inequality in the distribution. If you think about, the memes that go on social media about the top 10 richest people in the country, whoever you tend to believe, that the top 10, and there's a distribution there. Everybody is not equally rich. So even among the rich, you will have inequality. So that's the graphical illustration. An intuitive illustration that I have always found useful is comparing it with height. And if you take a cohort of children, say you start with grade 1, and you keep monitoring them over time. So when they're in grade 1, they are probably, shorter than 4 feet or so, or maybe even less than that. And then over time they increase. And when you go up to grade 12, they are, hopefully above 5 feet, although some of us don't always get there. But you have to be careful of stretching the simile too far, but taking the question of should we care, I think in the question of height, I would care about somebody who in grade 12 is still below 4 feet or 3.5 feet, because there's then a growth issue there. If the others are, above 5 feet, that would not be such a problem. Some people will have more potential to be basketball stars, and others won't be able to get there. But I would be more concerned about this person who didn't, make even what they were supposed to. So that's how I would think in terms of caring about poverty and caring about inequality. But I think there are other reasons to care about inequality. And that is that quite often you are unlikely to have rising inequality, which at the moment we don't have in Sri Lanka, but you are unlikely to have rising inequality without a change in poverty. Theoretically it can happen, but most of the time, if there's rising inequality, the poor are also really suffering. And rising inequality at the top, even if you don't have that much increase in poverty, it suggests that not only is wealth or income being concentrated at the top, but possibly power as well. And you might have a situation where policies are dominated by the preoccupations of the people at the top. So you will have a middle class or lower middle class, if you like, who will be left behind. And so there'll be an aspirations gap. And that can lead to problems of a different sort. You can have crime, you can have social instability. And so inequality is bad from that point of view, apart from just the general idea of inequality being also related to inequity. It's just not fair. And I think for me, and perhaps as a Center for Poverty Analysis, this is probably a concern you share as well, that in this kind of a situation, if you still have a segment of people who are absolutely poor, because in Sri Lanka we haven't eliminated poverty, we just have a very low proportion of people who are poor according to the poverty line that we are using, the chances are if you have sort of a lot of rich people and this very small segment of the poor, then the poor could be overlooked. And so I would still say that poverty is really what we should care about. We should care about inequality, but we need to think about it differently.